Imagine standing at a range with two cartridges in your hand. They look almost identical, similar in length, similar diameter, maybe even similar markings. One belongs in your handgun, the other doesn't. Would you trust appearance alone? I wouldn't. And that's one of the most important lessons in ammunition safety. Looking similar doesn't mean interchangeable. Hi, I'm Stephen Foreman, owner of Black Sky Tactical. Our mission is simple: provide professional firearms education that develops safe, responsible, and prepared armed citizens. Let's get started. Ammunition is part of the system. Welcome to episode 4 of the Black Sky Tactical Responsible Armed Citizen Academy. In episode 3, we talked about understanding the handgun itself. Now we're going to talk about what the handgun is designed to use: ammunition. Ammunition sometimes gets treated like an accessory. Buy the gun, buy a box of cartridges, go shooting. But ammunition isn't an accessory to the operating system. It's part of the operating system. Black Sky Tactical's responsible armed citizen students are expected to distinguish a cartridge from a bullet, understand its principal components, identify appropriate ammunition, recognize questionable ammunition, and respond safely when something sounds, feels, or behaves abnormally. So let's start with terminology. A bullet is not the whole cartridge. People say, "I bought a box of bullets." In everyday conversation, everyone may understand what they mean. Technically, though, the bullet is only the part of the complete cartridge. At the introductory level, think of a handgun cartridge as having 4 major elements: the case, the primer, the powder charge, and the bullet. The case holds the system together. The primer provides the ignition source. The powder charge produces the expanding gases that provide the energy. And the bullet is the projectile that exits the firearm. The Responsible Armed Citizen Academy specifically expects students to know that distinction because accurate terminology helps us understand what is actually happening. This isn't about correcting strangers just to prove we know vocabulary. It's about communication. If someone says, "The bullet didn't fire," that description doesn't tell us much. Was there a cartridge in the chamber? Was the primer struck? Did the ignition occur? Was the projectile obstructed? Precise words help us ask better questions. Centerfire and rimfire are another distinction. You'll hear interfire versus rimfire all the time. At the simplest level, centerfire ammunition uses the primer located centrally in the base of this cartridge case. Rimfire ammunition uses priming material associated with the rim of the cartridge case. Why should a responsible firearm owner understand that? Because different firearm and ammunition systems aren't automatically compatible, and the markings matter. You don't choose ammunition because it looks close enough. You identify what the manufacturer designed the firearm to use. Compatibility is verified, not guessed. Let's say someone owns a handgun chambered for a particular cartridge. They go to a sporting goods store. They see another cartridge with a similar number in the name. The boxes look similar. A friend says, "I think that's basically the same thing." What's the response? What's the responsible answer? Stop and verify. The approved Academy material teaches a multiple reference approach. Checking the markings on the firearm and ammunition packaging and consulting the manufacturer's documentation rather than relying on appearance or memory is important. You should be able to answer, what cartridge is this firearm designed for? What marking is on the firearm? What marking is on the ammunition? What does the manufacturer specify? If those answers don't line up, don't improvise. But it fits. That's a dangerous idea worth eliminating. If it fits, it must be okay. Mechanical fit does not establish safe compatibility. A cartridge entering a chamber is not the same thing as long as the firearm being designed and approved for that ammunition. Think about dimension, pressure, case design, bullet profile, firearm design. All these things can matter. So if you ever catch yourself saying, "It seems like it fits," you've already reached a point where you should stop and verify. Before ammunition is loaded, look at it. Again, we're developing habits. You're not performing laboratory analysis. You're simply asking whether something is obviously abnormal. Is this cartridge visibly damaged? Is the case badly corroded? Is the bullet seated in a way that looks unusual compared with the others? Is the cartridge contaminated? Is it something you found loose in a container with no reliable identification? If you're uncertain what it is, why gamble? Our Academy lesson is clear that damaged or questionable ammunition should not simply be fired to see what happened. Packaging is information. Ammunition packaging isn't just cardboard. It contains identification, manufacturer, cartridge designation, load information, warnings, potential lot information that become particularly important when you have multiple calibers or cartridge types in the same household. Loose ammunition thrown into an unmarked container removes information, and removing information makes future mistakes easier. Organization is a safety tool. Here's a practical scenario, the range bag. Imagine you own two pistols that use different ammunition. You've been to the range with both. Loose cartridges are sitting in the bottom of your range bag, and a month later, you find them. Do you think you know which is which? Maybe, but maybe isn't a verification standard. If you're not certain what a cartridge is or whether it's suitable, set it aside rather than trying to solve the mystery by loading it into a firearm. Now let's talk about malfunctions. This is where I want listeners to understand a black sky tactical principle. You don't need to diagnose the problem before you make the situation safe. That's important. People sometimes believe expertise means instantly knowing exactly what went wrong. Not necessarily professional judgment. It often means recognizing, right? Something is off. Something is abnormal. Stop. The Academy lessons cover 3 ammunition-related conditions students should recognize conceptually: misfire, hangfire, and squib load. The click is, imagine you're firing under controlled range conditions. You press the trigger and you expected a discharge. Instead, click, what happened? Could be several things, but the first thing isn't, what exact malfunction do I have? The first question is, what is the safest response while I don't yet know? That's why the Academy teaches the safe response first and diagnosis second. Maintain safe direction, keep your trigger finger away from the trigger, stop firing, follow the range officer or instructor's procedures. Don't immediately start manipulating the firearm because you're impatient to get back into the drill. Delayed is not to rush is the possibility of delayed ignition. A hangfire. A cartridge may not ignite at the instant expected. That uncertainty is why a click shouldn't automatically trigger frantic manipulation. On a supervised range, follow the established malfunction procedure and the instructor or range safety officer's directions. The quiet shot. Now imagine the opposite. There is a discharge, but something is wrong. The sound is unusually quiet. Recoil feels unusually weak. Maybe the firearm operates differently. What should happen next? Stop. A weak or abnormal discharge can be associated with a condition where a projectile may not have cleared the bore. The Academy material and instruction specifically identifies unusually low sound or recoil as a possible warning of a squib and states that the firearm should not simply be fired again until a suspected obstruction has been resolved. That's a critical safety habit. The dangerous response is, that felt weird. Let me fire another one and see if it does it again. No, the abnormal event itself is the reason to stop. Recognize a useful analogy. Your car's oil pressure warning light comes on. Do you need to be an automotive engineer before you stop driving? No. The warning is enough to change your behavior. Firearms are similar. If something appears abnormal, stop. If something sounds abnormal, stop. If something feels abnormal, stop. The Academy's Responsible Armed Citizen Principle number 4 captures exactly that idea. Verify ammunition and stop immediately when something appears, sounds, or feels abnormal. Please don't look down the muzzle. This should be obvious, but it deserves to be stated. If you suspect a bore obstruction or malfunction, you do not solve the question by looking into the muzzle. Maintain safe firearm orientation and use appropriate qualified procedures. Curiosity doesn't override the safety rules. Here's our second scenario. Embarrassment on the firing line. It's a realistic problem. You're in a class, everyone else is shooting, your firearm does something strange. You don't want to hold up the class, you don't want to look inexperienced, so you're tempted to clear the problem yourself even though you aren't certain what happened. That's ego interfering with safety. Raise your non-firing hand if that's the range procedure. Get the instructor, say something doesn't seem right. That's not failure. That's exactly what a responsible student is supposed to do. Defensive ammunition versus practice ammunition. Firearm owners also hear endless debates about ammunition selection. Brand, bullet type, weight, velocity, cost, performance. For this podcast, I don't want to turn that into a product recommendation. The The responsible approach begins with compatibility, reliability, legal considerations where applicable, manufacturer guidance, and the intended lawful purpose. Training ammunition should still be correct for the firearm. Defensive ammunition should still be validated appropriately, and novelty should never outrank reliability and compatibility. Ammunition storage has to be stored responsibly. Think about it. Unauthorized access, environmental exposure, original identification, organization, and separation when appropriate for your household or training environment. We'll talk more about household firearm storage in episode 7, but ammunition belongs in that planning conversation too. The ammunition audit is important. Here's your exercise for after this episode. Look at the ammunition you actually own. Can you identify every box? Does the cartridge designation clearly match the firearm it is intended for use? Do you have loose, unidentified ammunition? Do you have damaged cartridges you've been meaning to dispose of properly? Do you know where the manufacturer's ammunition specifications are for your firearm? This isn't about accumulating ammunition. It's about knowing what you already have. Here's the responsible armed citizen simple takeaway. Ammunition is verified, not guessed. You verify compatibility, you inspect what you're loading, you remain alert while firing, and if anything looks, sounds, or feels wrong, you stop. Our approved curriculum summarizes the lesson around the same principles. A cartridge and bullet are not synonymous. Correct ammunition must be verified. Similar appearance does not prove interchangeability. Questionable ammunition should not be fired, and abnormal firing conditions require a safe stop response. In episode 5, we're going to move from ammunition into another responsibility that's easy to neglect: firearm inspection, cleaning, maintenance, and function checks. Because equipment trusted for protection has to be maintained before the day you need it. Black Sky Tactical is determined to answer your questions, so visit blackskytactical.com, email us, or send us a text, and we'll get you answered. If you're interested in us creating a podcast on a specific topic, drop a message on one of our socials, and we'll give you a shout out. You can find our podcast on Spotify and videos on YouTube, but the best experience is in the classroom. Go to blackskytactical.com today to sign up for our Responsible Armed Citizen Academy to qualify for your New York and New Jersey concealed carry permits. Combined with our NRA instruction, you will be prepared to become a responsible armed citizen. If you found this video helpful, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who can benefit from it. I'm Stephen Foreman with Black Sky Tactical. Until next time, stay informed, stay prepared, train safely, carry responsibly, and remember, being prepared saves lives.